than for most others. No, I don't know that, but I'm saying amongst those.
No, but they're poles apart. I mean, in a while, maybe later when we have some time, we're going to put two pictures together. But he's just a much more smiling,
we're just happier to have
man.
him, Shiv. I think we're just happier to have him than she.
He looks happy to be here as well, it looks like. He's like, I'm happy to have been here. Because not an easy position to be in. She not coming for this, him having to represent. See, he's got a big smile.
You know, he's seen as pragmatic, business friendly. He's a career bureaucrat. Joined the Communist Party in 1983 at the age of 24.
And he's been having a rough time, as has the Chinese leadership within China. So it's always nice when you're having a rough time at home, where you've got serious economic issues to address. Just move to a neighboring country, including, find almost sort of some greater empathy possibly here.
Rishi Sunak on our screen now. He went to the Akshardham temple early in the morning.
He's got a kalava on his wrist also, apparently. That's going to become a talking point.
And no other leader has attracted as many eyeballs as Rishi Sunak on this visit. I mean, he's been here and there and everywhere. In 48 hours, he's been to a school, he's been to the British Council, he's been to Akshardham.
He's also feeling comfortable here. He's feeling warm, he's feeling welcome.
And for Indians also, I think it's a moment of pride. To see someone of Indian origin there as the Prime Minister of United Kingdom. I mean, Rishi Sunak can't go too wrong.
So he's got those religious threads on his wrist and some rakhis, I think.
And now he gets. Can we just have the audio up if possible? Are we still getting that? Because he's getting the tour of Akshardham. He's getting the tour now of the Sabarmati Ashram. Okay, so it's interesting. I thought like Ajay Banga or somebody would say, I know quite a bit about this, but he's soaking it all in. He went to the Akshardham temple this morning, and he always gets this little bit of an extra conversation with the Prime Minister, obviously talking a bit about the role that Mahatma Gandhi would have played. He's a very well-read man.
And he's the youngest, 42. At 42, I think he's the youngest member of this gathering at the moment. Will face a very difficult year ahead. Re-election won't be easy for the Conservatives in 2024, end 2024, early 2025.
Joko Widodo, President of Indonesia, he just hosted the ASEAN summit. Now coming on the screen, known back home as Jokowi. Again, a country that we're building very close ties with. Re-elected in 2019 for a second 5-year term. The Indonesian president right now in front of this image of the Sabarmati Ashram.
Second time that the Prime Minister is meeting him in about 72 hours after the ASEAN summit.
And Rahul, you made a good point yesterday about his sort of transition to the new Indonesia, woodcutter's son.
Yeah, absolutely.
And therefore, you've got a lot of leaders of countries which came out of independence in the 40s and 50s. The earlier generation leaders were seen as part of the old elite. And now you've got a completely new generation, all of them born after their countries got independence, coming out of that period where the colonial era still dominated the politics, to a new generation. And Prime Minister Modi, some believe, also represents in his own way that generation. And so does Widodo.
His family, his son and daughter-in-law, went to Taj Mahal, to Agra. The lovely pictures, we'll have them out for you, Shiv, in just a moment, where there are the Taj Mahal soaking it in. So a lot of these other people who are part of the troupe get a chance to go out and about.
Good idea.
Yeah.
And that's something which perhaps some of the leaders will miss out, because it's so cramped. In normal times, when you come to a bilateral in Delhi, traditionally you went to Agra and got your one photo up.
But this government's not very hot on sending people to Agra.
This government's not very hot, but I'm sure people would love to. The visiting dignitaries would love to go and spend.
But there's so much more to India than just the Taj Mahal. Taj Mahal is lovely, of course, but it's not the only thing that you want to send everybody to.
If you ask someone, you are to come to India and you want them to see 3 landmarks, would the Taj feature in them or not?
What will be the other 2?
Now I'm asking you, would the Taj feature?
Of course.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you ask somebody, a friend wants to come to India and he says, tell me 3 places I must visit, I think the Taj would be very much still there. It's a magnificent monument of a kind that you don't have in the country.
If time is of...
in the world, rather.
If time is of essence and there's a shortage of time, they can also go to the Humayun's tomb. We understand that...
it's magnificent.
Might be
and the Argentinian president went there as well.
No, it's a magnificent monument. The Taj is the Taj. There's the Humayun's tomb.
True.
And it just takes a couple of hours on the freeway. I mean, if you're here for a weekend to Delhi, you can do Humayun's tomb and you can do the Taj.
2.5 hours.
2.5 hours and you'll be in the Taj. So, well, the Indonesians
and
got
we're
it right.
seeing, Gaurav, the Indonesians push back. A lot of these ASEAN countries are pushing back against China much more than we've seen them push back so far.
Well, after the new Chinese map, the world is alarmed, and the 9-dash line, then the 10-dash line, they're claiming territory and exclusive economic zone of multiple countries. So Philippines is up in arms, Indonesia is up in arms, and increasingly they're seeking Indian help. Like you were mentioning, this BrahMos supersonic cruise missiles, something that India is not only promising but also delivering. Vietnam's getting them, offshore petrol vessels, other ships in this region, and increasingly, when India and France talk today, there will be a major conversation about more patrolling in the South China Sea to ensure sea lanes of communication are kept open. So, Rahul, this is extremely important that democracies unite to take on an expansionist China. And, if I may, just a small aside, visiting dignitaries in and around Delhi are compelled to watch, see perhaps the Humayun tomb and Taj Mahal, because a lot of other things were destroyed after centuries of Islamic rule, and that's why perhaps they haven't been able to go to other places, not many other temples in and around. But if you go down, there's Hampi you can go to, there's the Meenakshi temple you can go to, there's Thanjavur you can go to. There are so many temples and so beautiful, and so many other sites that they can see, and far more ancient and better than just the Taj Mahal.
Gaurav, my friend, you and I will have a separate debate on that one day. I think India's glory lies in your ability to go to Hampi and to the Taj. And I think if you can discover both, but Hampi needs to be better connected. The problem with Hampi is it's very badly connected even today. You need a proper airport that takes people to Hampi, and I hope that happens. I hope the Karnataka government does that, and I hope that that we have an airport with daily flights to Hampi.
There's a new airport in Shimoga, and hopefully will be more connectivity.
Yeah, because you see, at the moment, otherwise to Hampi, you either have to, there's a private airfield that the Jindals have built close by. But otherwise, it's tough to reach there.
The President of France, there'll be a...
Who wasn't there yesterday morning, right?
He came a little late.
He arrived a little late.
Yeah.
But he's staying back in the afternoon.
He has a big working lunch with the Prime Minister today.
The Prime Minister was in Paris a few months ago for Bastille Day.
Yeah.
And and Macron's had a tough time within his own country, dealing with tensions and violence that was immigrant violence that took place not too long ago in their country as well. He's had a rough time, but comes out stronger.
France. The interesting thing is yesterday when that international infrastructure corridor was being spoken of, he spoke in English. So, some other French leaders would be very prickly about speaking in English. He was fine. It wasn't long intervention, short intervention, but he was happy to speak English. Warm welcome. Happy to see Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Modi.
Yeah.
Shiv, happy to see Emmanuel Macron.
Big year for India, France. The Bastille Day parade, where the Indian armed forces were present there. We had ships in France on the day. India and France have just begun talking about a second Rafale deal, which nobody thought was going to be possible after all the politics over the original Rafale deal in 2018-2019. So this is a relationship that's been sweetened by the strategic relationship between the two countries. This is a friendship that goes back a long way.
And another leader from this sort of 40s generation. You've got these 3 or 4 young leaders, all in their 40s. Macron, 46, born in 1977. So, when you look at it, you recognize Europe in particular seems to be embracing a completely new generation of
Meloni,
leaders.
Sunak.
Just look at across
Macron.
Europe. You're getting more and more leaders who are born post-1970, which is quite remarkable because that means in their early 40s and 50s, they're already leading their country. It's a lesson for us sometimes. Our politics tends to remain a little geriatric, if I may be allowed to use the word.
It doesn't matter how the age, as long as the man can get the job done.
By and large, but when you want, we keep mentioning how we are the youngest, we have the largest young population in the world, but in contrast to that, most of our politicians are over the age of 60. I would like to see many more younger 40 and 50-year-olds taking greater leadership positions.
Who's experienced, who's won himself, not appointed, and who can get the job done. I think that's far more important.
Yeah, well, yes and no. At the end of the day, I think a younger leader across the world, one of the reasons why younger leaders are attractive is because there is a younger demographic out there.
But as long as the younger leader gets elected himself. Rajiv Gandhi was very
absolutely.
young, but he was also very inexperienced and made lots of bloopers.
I think Rajiv Gandhi is an outlier. The reason why he became Prime Minister in 84 didn't have to do with a long period in politics. He just entered in 81. But I'm just mentioning the fact that Europe has a lot of young leaders out there is a sign of the times. And I think that's one thing that we've always, maybe in India we value age and experience. That's why I can survive.
As long as he's
That's why I can survive in a television studio at the age of 58. Otherwise, you'd think, and that's the contrast. Look at BBC's presenters. They're all in their 60s. But their leadership is increasingly younger. You look at the battle that's taking place for the Labour Party, even within the Conservatives, all 40-year-olds who are now, fiercely competing with each other.
So we're waiting for President Joe Biden. We're waiting for the Saudi Prince Mohammed bin Salman. He's only 38. They're the ones who are still to come. Who else? They're the ones who are not here just at this moment.
Just Joe Biden left?
Mohammed bin Salman, probably the youngest.
And
Joe Biden, the oldest. And they'll come one after another as we wait. At least they're next in queue, unless we're not certain. He always comes a bit late. The Sheikh always is just a little bit late. And that's just the way it's been. But that's fine. He's a hugely transformative figure internally, even though he's polarizing externally. But in the way that he's reformed Saudi Arabia, has these big bang projects, building up dream cities. Now, if he can get all that going, he's making it less clergy driven, opening it up for women. A lot of young people in Saudi Arabia really like him.
And he is the youngest. He is at 38, the youngest representative of his country here at this meeting. But he's again a polarizing figure. Human rights groups insist that he has much to answer for the Khashoggi killing. And others see him as this individual looking to reform his country, both political and legal reform. Cyril Ramaphosa was the other one missing. He is on your screen now.
President of South Africa.
President of South Africa, old ANC hand, was close to Nelson Mandela, pushed the ANC into this new age as part of the group around Mr. Mandela. While Mr. Mandela was aging, it was the likes of Cyril Ramaphosa who took their country forward. And South Africa now has the African Union as a partner. Till yesterday, they were the only African representative on G20. You had Egypt as having been an invitee.
And Nigeria was an invitee.
And Nigeria was an invitee, but they were the only permanent G20 members. Now they've got the African Union there. But Cyril Ramaphosa should know Mahatma Gandhi well, because the ANC, got its inspiration in a way from the Mahatma. Nelson Mandela, hugely influenced by Mahatma Gandhi. So only appropriate to have Cyril Ramaphosa there at the Gandhi Ashram. I think he will be able to know more probably than any other leader about Sabarmati.
Ashram,
yeah, but Ajay Banga, of course, knew it because he's also born and brought up here. He studied at IIM.
And a Stephanian. Shiv and Ajay Banga have a lot in common. They represent...
Many years apart, and I'm nowhere close to being the...
Are you just dating Mr. Banga?
They have a Stephanian water cooler talk group, so I'm sure they have all kinds of generations covered by that. I know that Shashi Tharoor has been tweeting about Ajay Banga, trying to sort of say, look, we've got one Stephanian also.
Oh no, the Stephanian network is always blasting news about any big achievement.
Of any
Shaktikanta Das being awarded the best central banker. That was a big headline recently as well. So yeah,
also Ajay Banga studied at the Indian Institute of Management in Ahmedabad, which is probably why he told the Prime Minister that he knows quite a bit about the Sabarmati Ashram, because he was at IMA. So now we have the Saudi prince.
So we've just got two left. So they haven't gone alphabetically.
Koi late ho jata, I think.
So it's just on time. This was supposed to get over around 9:20 before you have recitations of prayers and hymns of Mahatma Gandhi. So we have another 5 minutes.
Given that
there'll be a replaying first.
Seems that it's raining. So because if you're going to be sitting around on the lawns and it's raining, that's going to be a bit awkward. So let's see how much of the original plan they stick to and how much of it they have to adjust and adapt, given the fact that there is a bit of rain.
But it's, these are, again, important symbolic images, as we've been saying, of, you've got a fractious world out there divided by war in recent times, and then you come to Rajghat, assemble there. Hopefully that spirit of the Mahatma is provides some element of peace and reconciliation. I think it's significant that we are, as a nation, that we are able to use the Mahatma creatively and constructively to send that message to the world. I think it remains India's great strength, and it's enduring. It's like the Taj. Gaurav and I can dispute whether you should go to Hampi or whether you should go to the Taj. But these are all enduring symbols. The Taj will be there hopefully for centuries, as will Gandhi's legacy. Gaurav?
But the one thing that they've done...
On Gandhi's legacy, I hope you and I are on the same side.
Sir, we are always on the same side. We always keep India
On
first.
Gandhi.
There are no two ways.
I thought you were going to say Bharat first, Gaurav. Are you going to change the name of your show? Does it go from India first to Bharat first?
Yeah, Gaurav, you got to start changing the name of your show starting Monday. Bharat first.
Sir, Rahul, both these decisions are above my pay grade, and perhaps you will be in the best position to decide that. But if I may, yes, even Mahatma Gandhi spoke of peace and non-violence, but was never in favor of cowardice, was never in favor of giving up, what was legitimately yours. So that is also, when we learn about Gandhi, when we teach about Gandhi, what we must also teach is protecting what is yours. That's exactly what our country is doing at this point of time, taking the entire world along. It's taking that Indian Sanatan philosophy, civilizational philosophy to the entire world, that the world has now accepted. This Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is exactly India's philosophy that the world agrees with. They have not agreed to everything in Bali. They haven't agreed to things in the past, but they've agreed to all the 83 paragraphs, hook, line and sinker, because it is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Yes, Russia-Ukraine war is important, but not at the cost of taking the developing countries along. And, that's the point India has been trying to make throughout. Rahul, Rajdeep and Shiv.
One of the things about Mahatma Gandhi, we keep talking about peace and ahimsa. He was probably, a true environmental evangelist. He was the first green leader in his own way. I mean, he spent a lot of his time talking about nature. One of my worries is on climate change. A lot has been said in the agreement. They're going to have to walk the talk on climate finance. They're going to have to live up to the commitments that are being made in these, in various summits. And we haven't still seen that. So while you've got this consensus in the Delhi Declaration, are you going to walk the talk? Will we see the war in Ukraine end? Unlikely, right away. It's not going to end because you made a declaration and asked countries to stop territorial aggression.
At what point in time do you decide you need to get on with what you're doing, Geeta, and not worry about the guests who haven't come so far? So how's it going to play? Are we still waiting for the Saudi prince and for the American president?
Well, that's the American. Yeah,
Geeta.
Sorry, Rahul, could you please repeat your question?
I'm saying, in terms of keeping it going, because you also have the one future plenary, are they still waiting for the Saudi prince and for the American president, or will they just get on to the rest of the program?
Well, I'm just looking at the White House details, and the president has left for Rajghat, so he will be there. Interestingly, he is not going to attend the concluding session. From Rajghat, there's going to be a spray for the White House pool of reporters, and then from there he heads to the airport for his visit to Vietnam. So I think the timing of the declaration being announced yesterday also primarily maybe was to do with the fact that many of the leaders, because the decision has arrived and there is an outcome, Rahul, President Biden is not going to participate in the concluding session of the G20. That's what I learned from what I see from the White House pool. The fact that they are leaving that the president has left for Rajghat. He will be there in some time, and you will be seeing visuals coming in very soon. And from there, he leaves for Vietnam.
That's right. That was what we were told yesterday as well, that he wouldn't be there at the last session. He has a meeting in Vietnam, and that meeting will, take precedence now. It's a major sort of bilateral that he goes, and he's got to go back home within a certain
But he's
fixed
delivered where it mattered, to help India
get that declaration
ensure
through.
that there's a declaration to deliver big tangible takeaways so that you couldn't have said later ki sirf photo kichi kuch hua nahi. So President Biden played an important role in all of that.
And he came at a time when there was a question mark, will he come or not? His wife had COVID just a couple of days before.
While we're talking about Biden, he's on his way now to the Rajghat. This picture that's just been tweeted by MK Stalin, one of the few opposition chief ministers who showed up, along with Mamata Banerjee and others. Nice picture of him shaking hands with Joe Biden. There's also the Prime Minister in the frame, as is the President. And he's tagged the Prime Minister as well. There's recent political acrimony over Udayanidhi Stalin, etc. Things have been said. There's been a crossfire. Nice picture. He's tagged the Prime Minister. Genial picture.
Shiv, it's interesting that the Congress chief ministers chose not to attend.
Sukhwinder Singh Sukhu was there.
But the others weren't there.
Yeah.
I don't think
Baghel
Gehlot was there. Baghel was not there. Siddharamaiah was not there. How
did Sukhu show up then?
Most of the regional, there was no order as such. But I think, it's strange that these chief ministers didn't show up, because I think this was an occasion where you wanted to show India's, the plurality of India, the diversity of India.
Yeah,
the fact that most of the regional party chief ministers were there. I know Arvind Kejriwal was there, Mamata Banerjee was there, MK Stalin was there,
Nitish Kumar was there.
Nitish Kumar was there, Hemant Soren was there. So it's not as if the so-called opposition India alliance boycotted the function, far from it. A section of the Congress leadership felt, I believe, that Mallikarjun Kharge should have been invited as the leader of the largest opposition party at the moment. He wasn't invited. That created friction. There's a trust deficit, but I think it's unfortunate. Yesterday was an occasion where every chief minister who was invited should have been there. No reason not to be there.
You had Bhupesh Baghel say that because of airspace restrictions he couldn't come. You had
the Home Minister denied that.
The Home Ministry denied it. He said that there are no restrictions for governors and chief ministers.
I mean, there would be no way.
That looked really silly.
In fact, I spoke to
on the chief ministers.
very interestingly, I spoke to Mamata Banerjee, and she came a day earlier because she was worried that if she came on the day itself, would she be caught up in all the VVIP restrictions? But she came in a day earlier and made sure that she was there for the dinner, spent some time with Sheikh Hasina in particular because of the ties that exist between West Bengal and Bangladesh. I think, there are occasions where you can be truly inclusive. I think the inauguration of the Parliament building was another such occasion where I think all parties should have had their space on that day.
Yeah.
There was a kind of unofficial boycott of that, and that's disappointing.
Oh, that must be the American president. I also want to tell our viewers, while it's raining in Delhi, mercifully it's not raining in Colombo. That's where the India-Pakistan match is to take place. So it's not raining in Colombo. So once all this gets over, we can all watch the match. Till then you watch India Today, but when the first ball is bowled, then you can decide and just come back to India Today, see what else is happening. But you can watch the match in the evening. Hopefully it won't be raining. So we just had this big limo drive in. Let's see who comes out of it. I think it's President Biden, but we also are awaiting the Saudi prince, if he comes to Rajghat at all.
No reason why he shouldn't be there at Rajghat. He's also coming here. He's staying back here for a state visit.
He has a state visit tomorrow.
He has a state visit tomorrow. You've had a major India, Middle East, European economic corridor being announced yesterday. So
interestingly, he's on. Oh, that's President Biden. There he is.
He's also not attending the last session.
He's flying out soon after this to Vietnam.
So you've seen the youngest, or you're going to see the youngest in the Saudi prince. You've seen Rishi Sunak in the 40s. Now you've got a leader who's in his 80s. So Rahul, you can have all types. I concede that you can have all types as leaders. But there's a huge question mark whether at the age of 80 he should be pushing for re-election next year, because that would make him America's oldest ever president. I think his concerns have been there at times. But look, I think Joe Biden has had a trial by fire over the last 4 years. He had 2 years where America was weighed down by COVID, serious questions both on the health front as well as the job crisis that the country was facing. You've had interest rate challenges and you've had the war in Ukraine. I mean, given all that, he seems to have come out relatively unscathed. He still is in most polls ahead of any potential Democratic challenger, and with the Republicans also struggling to find anyone but Trump. You've got Joe Biden still very much, therefore, in contention for a second term as US President next year.
Okay, let's see how this moment goes. Prime Minister Modi welcoming Joe Biden. Now he gets the Sabarmati tour. It's very soothing to be at the Sabarmati ashram. No matter what, like I've usually been there in the middle of an election campaign, but when you go there, it just calms you down, settles you, has a nice serene air to it.
Yeah, I think the word to use for the Sabarmati ashram that stands out for me is simplicity. In a world where everything else seems to be big and large and seem to be dramatic, you go to the Sabarmati ashram and there's a simplicity that brings in a calmness and a serenity. It hasn't changed much over the years. There's been talk, as I said, and there is a project now to remodel it, and many of the old Gandhians are objecting to that, saying that this will again make Sabarmati ashram just another sort of modern day monument, which we don't want it to be.
And always gets the pride of place, maximum amount of time. The most warmth is for Rishi Sunak. The maximum amount of time and respect is for Joe Biden.
Well, America, the dollar still matters.
No, it's not just the dollar, Rajdeep. It's also the level of effort America has made in this relationship and the genuine warmth of the Indian people and the strategic reality of China flexing its muscles. So it's all of it together.
You have, in the Indo-US partnership now works at various levels, which is quite, again, one of the big changes that's taken place in the last 30 years. I remember when Bill Clinton came here and Vajpayee ji was Prime Minister, there was a lot of excitement because it was also new. You didn't think an American president rarely came to India. And when they came, you sort of went overboard almost. And now they come more and more often. We go more often to the United States. The Indian diaspora is breaking all boundaries and walls and ceilings in the United States. So it's a relationship that operates at different levels. Indian students, making an impact in universities across the United States. So I think that's changed the Indo-US relationship, hopefully forever.
That's the Brazilian president. Lula da Silva, he's come out now.
This time without the translator.
Translator nahi hai, sir. Aap kya bol rahe ho?
It was his wife. Okay, his wife. We thought it was his translator. It turned out to be Mr. Lula's wife. But he's the next leader of G20.
I'm just getting calls and messages from people in government saying, correct Rajdeep, Arvind Kejriwal wasn't at the dinner yesterday.
He wasn't at the dinner.
He was slated to be at the table of Lieutenant Governor V.K. Saxena. He wasn't there. He confirmed that he'd be coming. I don't know what happened.
Didn't come in the end.
He didn't come. This is what sources
sort of all the other names that we said, he's the only one who
I mean, there are lots of people in government who are watching. So those who are watching, some of them are calling and messaging basically to say that Arvind Kejriwal wasn't there.
He's got some big shoes to fill when he takes over the G20
Yeah, which is why if you see when he comes, he looks the most carefully to the left and the right to see how it's going because he's going to host it next.
So this is how
the pressure is on him.
No, the Brazilians know a thing or two about putting on.
Yeah, no, they'll put out a party. I mean, you could imagine the backdrop of Copacabana.
Yeah, but you have to deliver some tangible takeaways as well.
No, I'm sure they will. I mean,
and you have to invest a lot of energy in getting it done.
This is also, Brazil Shiv is right. They know how to sort of throw a spectacle. They've done it in the past. They can be chaotic. I think the one thing that India has shown is that amidst the chaos, when you want to do it, you can be very organized and go to the micro detailing, and we've done that successfully. That's the lesson I think Brazil or any country needs to get from India. Your eye to detail is critical to get a global event perfectly right. Lula is an interesting character because, trade unionist, went to jail, came back, fought a very tough, acerbic campaign against Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro again claimed that it, was almost refusing Trump-like to leave for a while, eventually went out. And, Lula is the comeback king of Brazil at the moment. And again, has a very special relationship with India. It's a country, he said in interviews, that he has a great admiration for. And at a time when the right is dominating politics across the world, you still have someone like Lula representing, in a way, the old left that that in many parts of the world is now being pushed to the margins. So Lula and Brazil will be looked at very closely in the next 12 months.
And there's a lot of pressure on them as the next host because 200 cities.
That's right.
No, 220 events, 60 cities.
60 cities.
28 states. So it's really gone far and wide. And the next host country, post-December 23, will have to now figure out how to take it one step further.
You're right. I just got a message from the LG's office in Delhi. So the LG versus Kejriwal thing plays out. The Chief Minister, Arvind Kejriwal, did not attend the G20 dinner. He had earlier confirmed that he'd be attending. Please rectify. Okay. We rectified it. Mr. Kejriwal was not there. It'll be interesting to know why.
Is there anyone who's not watching India today right now? I'm wondering.
No, but it'll be interesting to know why. I mean, you're in Delhi, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of the arrangements were made by the Delhi government in parts of Delhi. The beautification, they took a lot of credit.
A lot of it was done by the Lieutenant Governor as well.
No, but both, right? There were areas, I know in my constituency, for example, in Greater Kailash, you had Saurabh Bhardwaj actually putting out videos of parks that were being decorated, G20 symbols, hoardings that had been put up by the Delhi government. So you would expect in the normal course the Delhi Chief Minister to be there because in a small way, this is, he is part of the host committee.
He should have been there. I can't think of a good reason why he wasn't there. He really ought to have been there. We'll check with Mr. Kejriwal why he wasn't there and if there's a good reason. So far, we've got sources in government indicating that he wasn't there.
He and the LG, of course, have a fractious relationship. So putting them on the same table would not be a good idea in any case. But either way, I think this was an occasion where they could have
bad recently. I mean,
well, it will never
really
get. There's too many scars in that relationship. But the images we are showing, Rishi Sunak one side, Joe Biden on the other. The Saudi prince is the only one who hasn't come. Am I correct so far? Out of the expected.
I don't think he's. I mean, we'll check. He didn't come for the dinner either. He's also the Prince of Arabia. Now, how hard are you going to push him? So let's see if he does come. Because if everybody comes so slowly with so much of a gap between each leader coming in, Prime Minister Modi, who's a stickler for time, will find it difficult to be able to manage time.
Because I think it was 9:20 that the hymns and the prayers were supposed to start, and then they have a tree planting around 10:10 to 10:30. So if you're working according to time, you're slightly delayed, which is possible in a mega event like this. But presumably they also have to write on the wall. They're going to put out a message.
There's a peace wall.
There's a peace wall that's been set up.
Rajiv Chandrasekhar, who's a very avid aviator himself, seems to have had an opportunity to get into Air Force One. So he's saying one more item on my bucket list ticked, the Air Force One, as I wait to see off the POTUS. VK Singh welcomed him. Rajiv Chandrasekhar seeing him off. He says fanboy aviator. And here is Prime Minister Modi walking the American president and the other invited guests around. They've all taken their shoes off in deference and respect to Mahatma Gandhi, or at least most of them have. Some have these slip-ons on. But they're all walking around. And President Biden leading the way, getting a personal tour and an explanation from Prime Minister Narendra Modi. You can also pick up the kind of chemistry that exists amongst various leaders, who talks to who's walking alone. It's always interesting to pick up those little snatches.
So they go to the peace, the wall of peace that has been created specifically for their. That's the hymns and prayers.
All of them with their khadi scarves, led by the Prime Minister, walking towards.
And the Prime Minister talks the most to Joe Biden, at least in the images that we see, always keeping him right by his side. And it also signifies, these little things signify the deepening strategic ties between India and the United States and the level of emphasis both countries play on the relationship that they have with each other. Donald was the last American president who was there in February 2020. He and his wife Melania had come. At that time, Trump had written in the visitor's book, "The American people stand strongly with a sovereign and wonderful India, the vision of the great Mahatma Gandhi." This is a tremendous honor. Before him, Barack Obama was here. And I have Barack Obama's notes. He says, what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said then remains true today. The spirit of Gandhi is very much alive in India, and it remains a great gift to the world. May we always live in the spirit of love and peace among all people and nations.
Can we just say what a fabulous image this is? As Rajdeep just said, in a world steeped in war and conflict, the Indian leader leading the most powerful leaders of the rest of the world,
And
as they pay
in a
respects
way,
to the
Shiv,
Mahatma. Amazing.
And in a way, Shiv, it provides a ray of hope in the divided world.
Yeah.
This sense of calm, serenity. It's a chaotic world out there, lots of disruptions. It's a world which is rapidly changing. And you look for those few symbols that represent a sense of hope.
Yes.
And dare I say, stability. And the Mahatma provides that enduring sense of hope. That true. Every time you go to Rajghat, you feel the peace like you do in Sabarmati. And having the world leaders coming at Rajghat is, to my mind, the ideal way before the grand finale.
Very true.
Presumably the negotiations were hard, fractious. You have a war still going on in Ukraine. But just having all the leaders here together does make a huge difference. Purely the symbolism of the moment. And I think that's the ideal way, in a way, to send a message to the world from India. So if you're talking of Vasudev Kutumbakam, who better than Mahatma
Yes.
to represent that? And I hope some of our MPs, who unfortunately in the last few years have made rather critical comments about Mahatma, which are extremely unfortunate.
True.
Are watching and recognize that Gandhi is above your factional
And I
politics.
agree with you, Rajdeep. An eternal symbol, probably the most enduring, symbol of such great depth. Let's just listen in to the bhajan. This was, of course, Gandhiji's favorite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan. So let's listen to it for a little bit as the leaders assemble.
Your Highnesses and Excellencies, thank you for joining us for this special occasion at Rajghat. I will now request the leaders to kindly step forward and adjust the country ribbons on the wreaths, please. We shall now have a moment's silence, please. Thank you, Excellencies.
रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम 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 ईश्वर अल्लाह तेरे नाम सबको सन्मति दे भगवान ईश्वर अल्लाह तेरे नाम सबको सन्मति दे भगवान रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन
If there is one devotional song which was popularized by Mahatma Gandhi, it is Raghupati Raghav Rajaram. And what Gandhi did with it is quite remarkable because he added Ishwar and Allah and thereby in a way secularized the song, made it about reconciliation, made it about harmony. So it was the traditional Ram Dhun which many believe was either written by Tulsidas or was written by Ramdas, the Marathi saint poet. But the manner in which Gandhi adapted it to a new age, he made it devotional but made it inclusive. You know, it was a hymn which if you went apparently to Gandhi's prayer meetings, you would have Hindus and Muslims who would come to those prayer meetings because he added Ishwar and Allah. I mean, this was the genius of the man, that you took the traditional Ram Dhun and it was with the devotional fervor and you adapted it to what he thought was the challenge of the times, bringing Hindus and Muslims together in that fight against freedom. So I think that message perhaps can only go to the world leaders. This is a moment to reconcile differences and come together. So Raghupati Raghav Rajaram is, you know, classic Gandhi spirit and philosophy encapsulated in that song.
I don't think these images are going to evaporate anytime soon. All of those world leaders in perhaps the most peaceful site in the country is something that's going to be emblazoned on people's minds. It is only the part one of the symbolism that we're going to see today. I'm told that in a short while from now, we might get images from British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's Akshardham visit as well. So we're awaiting that. The tree planting is going to happen next round.
Is that it wasn't a washout.
Yeah.
You know, that's the good thing.
The rain let up for a while.
That just, it's not,
The rain stayed away.
yeah.
You know, you
Just
had
at the right moment.
You had rain right through the night, but almost decided that, okay, we've opened up, but we're going to sort of give you that bracing feeling as you enter.
You couldn't ask for
Rajghat.
better weather than this. You couldn't ask for better weather than
you know,
this.
everyone picks one place to go to.
Yeah.
They toyed with the idea. I spoke to some officials in government and they were toying with the idea of going somewhere nearby because that's typically part of what happens. But they chose in the end to go to Rajghat. Very solemn, very meaningful, and the government and the Prime Minister sending that message that this is where we want to be. Remember, in the Delhi Declaration are written the Prime Minister's imprint. This is not an era of war. I think that comes through strongest. There's a very deep layer of symbolism at play here that comes through strongest with these images from the Rajghat. I don't think we've ever seen anything like these. So many world leaders lined up around the Rajghat as, you know, as they remember the life and learnings of Mahatma Gandhi.
Absolutely. And you know, I mentioned it a little while ago. There have unfortunately in recent times been a few discordant noises about Gandhi within even politicians, within members of parliament. I hope that they are all watching this and recognize that Gandhi is a true symbol of reconciliation, hope, harmony.
You know, each time you see these 19 leaders, the EU, and then of course the African Union, Prime Minister Modi and the American President are together, just side by side. You know, this doesn't just happen casually. This is a message to the one man who's not at Rajghat, who should have been Xi Jinping. This is a message. And interestingly, Rishi Sunak is right there as well. You know, very naturally gravitating as Prime Minister of Britain, natural ally, strategic partners. But the Indian Prime Minister, and even Joe Biden, he could have, he'd get along with someone like a Trudeau as well, or several of the other leaders who are there, but he's sticking to the host.
And look at the symbolism of Rishi Sunak being there. You've got a British Prime Minister coming to pay homage to the man who, in a way, deserves a fair credit along with many others
Also India's most famous expat.
for dismantling the British Empire. And now you've got a Prime Minister of Indian origin coming to pay homage to the man whose country jailed Mahatma Gandhi for years. You know, this is how history has come a full circle in a way, and Rishi Sunak is coming here to pay homage. There's been a huge dispute over the years. Should the British apologize for Jallianwala Bagh? Should they be there and, you know, going there on the side when the king or the queen come? Should they go to Jallianwala Bagh and say sorry for what happened? Yeah. And I believe that this should be part of the process. They should be going, you know, and saying sorry and apologizing for Jallianwala Bagh, and having Rishi Sunak there paying homage to Mahatma is part of this process of healing and reconciliation.
Interestingly, President Biden has some slip-ons on. Rishi Sunak is nange paon, so some of them preferring to ensure their feet don't get wet. Rishi Sunak soaking it all in.
Fantastic.
And very nice how the Prime Minister, these little gestures, really carry this event. The Prime Minister holding an elder US President's hand, because obviously the ground is wet. I don't know if the cameras caught all of it, but it was a very touching little moment. And I think it's these little things that really, people will take away from what is clearly such a symbolic event. Are the leaders going to be assembling somewhere now, Rahul, to listen to the bhajans a little bit more, or are they going to be heading straight now?
No, I thought they had to write a message on the peace wall as per the schedule, and then they would go.
We've got the first images
of
Rishi Sunak.
We've got some images of Rishi Sunak at the Akshardham temple this morning. Let's see if we can have those out.
First images from the Akshardham temple.
Oh, he didn't wear a kurta pajama. I don't know why I was thinking maybe he'll wear a kurta pajama and go in the morning. There he is at the Akshardham temple in the inner sanctorum.
This is inside the Akshardham temple in Delhi, where Rishi Sunak and his wife Akshata Murthy were there early this morning. So this was before the Rajghat event itself. That's the both of them there.
You know, also given the fact that he had to come straight to Rajghat, it makes sense. I mean, it's complicated to then be changing, but some lovely images here with the sadhus at the Akshardham temple. The Baps runs this and runs it in a very elegant fashion.
The Swaminarayan sect, which runs it, and over the years has sort of, that will be another image that will play out in all newspapers tomorrow, not just in this country, but importantly in Britain. You know, I think what we are seeing is the growing influence of India within Britain. They're all conscious of their domestic constituencies, whether it's Joe Biden, whether it's Rishi Sunak in particular, will be conscious of the fact he's got an election in 12 months. And, those images will play out, and it shows that Rishi Sunak has always worn his sense of Hinduness on his sleeve. He's made it very clear he derives a lot of hope from his faith in religion. He's deeply religious. He says he wanted to celebrate Janmashtami.
Raksha Bandhan.
He celebrated Raksha Bandhan. He has sisters and celebrated Raksha Bandhan, and was upset that he couldn't celebrate Janmashtami. He opens up 10 Downing Street to Diwali in all likelihood in a couple of months. And I think it's wonderful that you have a leader who is unapologetic about his religious identity, but at the same time is conscious that of reaching out across communities. That's the way it should be. Ideally, you don't wear your religion in the public realm, but as a private citizen, you have every right to hold your religious identity strongly. He's come to India and made it very clear he wanted to go to a mandir on day one itself.
The Akshardham temple has 20,000 statues of various personalities, spiritual personalities from the Hindu faith. The mandir goes up 141 feet into the sky, and it seems to have a Guinness record as the world's largest comprehensive Hindu temple. Inaugurated in November 2005, The mandir was built in just 5 years by the Bachaswani Shri Akshar Purushottam Swaminarayan Sanstha or BAPS, and they had this massive event in Ahmedabad where the Prime Minister went as well. So many private jets activated for that month-long, just soon after the Gujarat elections.
Huge. The Swaminarayan sect is huge in its impact and influence, not just in Gujarat but beyond. And they have a lot of VVIPs coming there virtually every week. And I think Akshardham has only grown in that sense in influence. I remember the original Akshardham temple being in Ahmedabad and covering a rather tragic event that took place in 2002 when there was a terror attack at the temple there. They emerged stronger out of that and then came to Delhi in 2005. And it's a huge complex now on the banks of the Yamuna there. So more and more world leaders as part of their Delhi sort of visiting. And I think that's the genius of Delhi, that if you could go to Akshardham and go to a Humayun's tomb, in a way you see Purani Delhi and you see also this new Delhi which is emerging, which is again part of being inclusive in the Indian context. But those are the images that will play out. And
they just put out a press release also. The temples just put out a press release. They say His Holiness, which is the head priest of the Akshardham, has extended his personal wishes and prayers for Mr. Sunak and the other delegates. He wrote, "In the spirit of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, we pray for you and all the attendees. May the summit be a resounding success in collectively helping the world towards peace." He was accorded a traditional warm welcome in the Hindu manner, symbolizing goodwill and friendship, says the press release. During his visit, the British Prime Minister was given an overview of Swaminarayan Akshardham, a 100-acre spiritual and cultural complex, the ancient architecture of India, and promotes the timeless Hindu spiritual messages of faith, devotion and harmony. Sharing his impressions of his visit, the Prime Minister of the UK said, "My wife and I were delighted to visit the Swaminarayan Akshardham for darshan and puja this morning. We were amazed and awed by the beauty of this temple and its universal message of peace, harmony and becoming a better human being. This is not only a place of worship, but a landmark that also portrays India's values, cultures and contributions to the world. We see today in Britain these very same values and culture through the positive contributions the British community makes to our country." He continues, I'm quoting what the British Prime Minister has said. He says, "I was honored to have received the blessings of His Holiness Mahant Swami Maharaj conveyed to me this morning, and I understand that His Holiness is inaugurating another beautiful Swaminarayan Akshardham temple in Robbinsville in the United States very soon. I would like to send my very best wishes to His Holiness." So that's the statement just out from the British Prime Minister as he visited the Akshardham temple. Looks like they had a very, very nice time.
No, I don't think any other leader has been on such a whistle-stop tour of Delhi as
But he knows
as
exactly
has.
where to go. So he's got
gone
things
to
he
the-
wants to do,
Yeah,
places he wants to go.
And he's got a very, very good High Commissioner in Alex Ellis. Alex Ellis has embraced India like few other diplomats in recent times.
He's been going and watching Bollywood films also.
He's been watching Bollywood films. He will ring you up and say, which are the films that I should watch? He watched Sholay, which he said he loved. And then sort of did a karaoke on Ye Dosti Hum Nahi Todege, which also broke the internet. He loves cricket and intends to go to watch all the World Cup games, he says, not just where England is playing, but also he hopes for an England-India final. He says an England-India final at Ahmedabad, Narendra Modi Stadium. And by the way, Rishi Sunak also loves his cricket. You go to Narayan Murthy's office and there's a picture of Rishi Sunak playing a forward defensive shot. So Rishi Sunak got the entire England team to come before the Ashes series to 10 Downing Street. They played a bit of cricket apparently in the garden behind. So cricket is the other great unifier, as is religion in the case of Rishi Sunak. So lots of complement. The bridge building between India and the UK is quite amazing in recent times, given the fact of all that happened, the depredations during the British Empire. The manner in which Britain ruthlessly took over the riches of India deserves a full apology from the British. Jallianwala Bagh deserves an apology. Some would say it deserves reparation also. But that aside, I think it's great to see how much the world has changed for the better. To see a British Prime Minister talk about Akshardham in the language that we just heard from Rishi Sunak, and indeed the fact that we have a Prime Minister of Indian origin today in Britain is a symbol of this changing world, Rahul.
Can we also just see what's happening at Rajghat for a moment? These are images from the Akshardham temple. They went into the Garbhagriha. Akshardham, of course, meaning the divine abode of God. Now one of Delhi's most popular attractions. I think it's very symbolic that they chose to go to Rajghat all together, and then when you want to privately do something, you can go to the Humayun's tomb, you can go to Akshardham if you'd like, but when all of them are together and as part of a visual program, that's the gentleman we were speaking to, Jyotendra. He's in charge of the temple complex, joining us. We've got Raji Dogra with us as well. Good morning, great to have you back. I see your enthusiasm as high as those of the participants, back again after a late evening. Welcome. What are you making of these images from the Akshardham?
When you're sitting with three handsome anchors, your enthusiasm goes up. But the images that are coming out, just now there is Rishi Sunak. He goes to Swaminarayan temple in London regularly, which is a replica almost of Akshardham, or the other way around. And this is remarkable in an age where one of the British Prime Ministers, Cameron, he had declared in a conference in Munich that multiculturalism in Britain is dead. That means their experiment with assimilation of other people, other religions, had gone wrong. Now, these images, and especially when he proudly says, I am a Hindu, not a rigid one, but I am a Hindu.
देख हटिए ना, वो टाटा प्ले का डीलर है ना, उसके बच्चे का स्कूल में एडमिशन आप ही कराई थी ना? हाँ। तो भाभी
is also being conveyed by all of them, including the president of Indonesia, Nigeria, who have different faiths.
Without imposing your religion on anyone else of a different faith in the performance of public duties. I think that's the significance. You can proudly wear your religious identity on your sleeve, but you do not impose it on anyone else or use it in your public duties. This is his private space in a way. He's not, doing it in his public space. And I think, I'm sure Rishi Sunak will also have a Christmas party at 10 Downing Street, as he will have Diwali. And I think that is true multiculturalism, which, as you rightly said, Mr. Dogra, Britain has been wrestling with. But perhaps in the rise of Rishi Sunak, you can sense that Britain is slowly coming to terms with it.
Gaurav Sawant is with us. Take us through your sense of the symbolism of Rishi Sunak being at the Akshardham temple. It's rained just a little bit. It hasn't rained too much. It's not rained so much that it derails your plans. It's rained just a little bit, and in my view, it makes Delhi even prettier when it's just a little bit of rain. Not too much that impacts your infrastructure.
That was also arranged by Ministry of External Affairs.
Itna bhi nahi, sir. Ministry of External Affairs. Okay, I know you guys are on a roll, and you did spectacularly well, most certainly, no doubt about that. But let the ME and the IFS not get carried away. You definitely didn't arrange the rain, but you did, thanks to your young bright officers and the entire team, help bring the Delhi Declaration together, which is far more significant.
There was a nice picture that Amitabh Kant put out today with
his team.
Nag Naidu and Inam Gambhir, the two people who were...
One speaking Russian, the other Chinese.
200 hours on just the Ukraine issue. Amazing.
No, I think the backroom staff of India's foreign service deserves a huge...
huge.
A huge degree of applause for the work they put in. This hasn't just been a one-day match. What we are seeing is the culmination. They started this, October, November last year. Bali was November last year. And to take it over, do 220 events across 60 cities. Okay. You involve, IAS officers, IFS officers. I mean, Amitabh Kant is an IAS officer, and he had a team of a mix of IFS and IAS.
Mr. Dogra is in the mood to do a bit of Rara MEA, I'm going to invite Shringla, the chief coordinator of the G20. He'll be joining us in a short while from now, so we'll have him there, former foreign secretary, chief coordinator worked very closely in bringing this whole program together. So we'll do a
Rahul,
bit
I
of
just
that.
wanted to quickly, before we bring in Harsh Shringla, the chief coordinator, I need to do this because this is important, because the number of messages we're all getting about the number of people who are viewing us. We've just done a quick calculation, not to boast, but we are currently at 26 times. India Today's viewership currently is 26 times all of the other channels' viewership combined.
Wow.
26 times. All of the other
And she was saying he
channels
didn't want to
combined.
boast. So
That's
it's
important to
very,
us
very
because that's
nonchalant.
made by our viewers. That's important. Just wanted to say that.
Now that's quite amazing. Thank you for your faith,
Yeah.
your trust, your time, waking up early in the morning, staying with us through the evening. It means the world to the entire team at the India Today Group. And it's your messages, your love, your affection that keeps us going. In fact, got us out of bed early this morning. Without that, we'd be sitting and just sipping our coffee at home. So thank you. It really does mean a lot. And it is indeed a big moment for India, a big moment for India today. And a big moment for Bharat as well. So we're working on this. Skand Tayal joins us, former diplomat, expert on Chinese studies. Mr. Tayal, what are you making of the reactions we are getting from Xinhua, from Global Times, and the manner in which China is decoding India's coming of age at the global stage in the modern world?
At least on the channels, if you see Al Jazeera or you see Channel News Asia, or the G20 coverage has been very good and positive. And China, of course, has its own view, but as Foreign Minister Jaishankar also acknowledged in his briefing yesterday, that yes, there were misgivings, there were apprehensions, there were fears that China may act as a spoiler, as the NSA of United States had also was fearing. But that has not happened. I think that is very positive. And this will be, I would say that in India, China, even bilateral relations or equations or dialogue or negotiations, this will be taken as a kind of a positive, that China did not play the role of a spoiler, and China ultimately Ukraine formulation would really be vetoed or not vetoed by Russia, and China would sort of support Russia. So there.
But can I present a counter to that? The fact that Xi Jinping didn't come to Delhi now makes it very difficult for Prime Minister Modi to go to Beijing. If nothing changes, Depsang, Demchok remain the way they are. Can the Prime Minister go to Beijing? So what happens next? They didn't play the role of spoiler, but that's just the bare minimum expectation. But it does suggest that at the highest levels, an acknowledgement that things between India and China are really amiss at this moment.
No doubt about that. See, in any multilateral gathering, the really interaction for a host is at two levels. One is at the bilateral, and bilateral issues come to the fore. And one are the multilateral, whichever organization, whether it is BRICS or SCO, it has its own agenda, its own priorities, its own ambitions, goals, objectives. Xi Jinping's not coming here clearly showed that India-China relations are frozen and nothing was expected to move forward. So he rightly decided that let us not raise expectations. And we saw very clearly Johannesburg, very brief interaction in the BRICS, but then both sides saying who called the meeting first and all that. So the relations are not normal. It's very clearly, publicly, repeatedly or acknowledged by our foreign minister. But the other part is the multilateral part. And there, G20, after all, China is the second largest economy in the world. G20's main purpose is financial, economic progress, development. And those
But there is a pushback, Rajiv Dogra, against China on the issue, for example, of that corridor, India, Mid-East, Europe corridor. All of this is in some senses pushing back against the Belt and Road Initiative that Beijing's been pushing so aggressively for so long.
Well, there's no doubt that China must be doing a rethink on this entire episode.
Why do you think they're rethinking?
Because the international opinion had turned against Xi not coming here. That is one of the reasons why they have given in to
But
the
maybe
extent
they thought it through and they don't care and there's no need to rethink from their perspective.
No, I don't think they would be so blasé about it. The fact is that even China cannot take on the world. It can take on America. It can make American ministers come there. and bow down to them.
But maybe their calculation is they want to build up BRICS, expand the BRICS, make their own G20 kind of G7 alliance. It's like, this is our own, this is our party. This is what we will build. Now, we can't really do much business with the US.
Rahul, I've been associated with BRICS from its beginning. And all I can say that despite it becoming 11, it is still BRICS. The mortar is missing. So that's a long way off. But coming back to China, I think first there were conspiracy theories that he stayed away because he was scolded by the party elders at the annual meeting. That has been demolished now. Then there was this theory that he wanted to send a message that without China you can't move ahead. That again has proved wrong because they have now come down and gone with the agreement.
No, but has China conceded in the agreement, or has the Western world? The general media commentary is the Western world is the one which has compromised to ensure that a Delhi declaration came through.
That's the Guardian's view of today.
That's by and large the world view at the moment. Europe and America have conceded far more than the Chinese and the Russians.
But I don't think that is correct. That's a knee-jerk reaction by some correspondents who are generally biased. In fact, I've tweeted about it, that some of them are malicious. The Guardian, in fact, the entire report.
How is it? They've gone against the European view on Ukraine, and the American view is not represented in the Delhi Declaration. It's much closer to the view expressed by the global South in a way, that you can't single out Russia in the way the Western world has done.
Well, firstly, you can't have the sky and the earth all in your pocket. You have to concede somewhere in the international negotiations. And the wisdom was that without naming Russia, if you talked about the nuclear issue, if you talked about the territorial aggression, then you don't have to put a stamp of Russia on the document. So I think.
So what have the Chinese conceded?
Chinese have conceded, from the general impression that they were the spoilers, they were the roadblocks on every part of the document. Today, they have gone along with the entire document. So either don't get it advertised that you are the villain of the piece, and then you fall flat on your face. So, which is exactly what is happening.
Their argument is that we never projected ourselves as the villain. The Americans said the Chinese should not obstruct. The statement came from the Americans. The Chinese will turn around today and say that, look, we are actually, and Rahul has a point, many believe that the Chinese actually want global leadership through organizations like BRICS, which they can control far more than the G20. They will invest much more in the years ahead, possibly, in building BRICS than in building G20 or G21.
As I said, the mortar is missing, and that's the essential part for any BRICS. But the other thing is, China may want anything. There is also a counter move by USA and like-minded countries to strengthen organizations like World Bank and so on, so that there is more representation of countries like India and other developing world. Sure. So China is not the only one who's setting the rules of the world. Okay. There are well-established rules of the world post-1945.
We have some more images of Rishi Sunak at the Akshardham temple as they are going around looking at different parts. This happened earlier this morning, and as I told our viewers, we will have Shringla, one of the heroes of India's G20 team, the chief coordinator, former foreign secretary. He'll be joining us in a few minutes from now. They're just setting up for that. But these are images from the Akshardham temple, Akshardham Murti, and you've got Rishi Sunak there walking around, even though it's raining, they're nange pao.
That's a lovely image again. Husband and wife with an umbrella. It's a good classic Indian image that will again go viral, I'm sure, across the world.
I'm wondering what they're making of all of this in Britain. In India, all of this is smashing the internet. No doubt about it.
No, I think every time you go to London, you see India as the flavor of the season. Go anywhere in England, and it is across new industries. You go to I was at the India-Australia Test match in London. And a friend of mine, British friend, took me to one of the boxes where all the private equity guys and the bankers are sitting. Over half the people sitting were top Indian bankers living in Britain in top positions in different commercial organizations, corporate organizations in Britain. India is the flavor of the season. We've earned our right in a way to have a sense of Indians being a major influence on what's happening in that country. And therefore, I think people in England will will buy these pictures. This is great for any major English newspaper tomorrow to have as a front page picture, across.
But what does White Britain think of this?
I think, look, all polls seem to suggest that's not a factor at all at the moment in any English poll. It is the state of the economy. If Rishi Sunak can get Britain back on track...
But he doesn't have enough time to do that.
He's got 12 months. He's got 12 months to get it back on track. If he can get it back on track, he's got every chance. But I don't think his Indian origins are an issue at all in any election in England. In fact, if anything, because multiculturalism is becoming increasingly the flavor of the season, you're seeing a pushback even among the Brexiteers. If you look at Boris Johnson sort of rode on the power of Brexit. Rishi Sunak supported of Boris Johnson on Brexit, but you're seeing now he too is nuancing his position. Then you're seeing the Brexiteers finding themselves in a more difficult position and dare I say, a new Britain. And these images, Rahul, are wonderful. They will not just break the net. I think they will be seen as symbols of social inclusion in Britain as well.
But it speaks about Indian politics as well. Can we have somebody so different from the majority becoming Prime Minister of India? Would that be welcome? So I think there are questions there as well.
Rahul, what are you hinting at?
No, I'm just saying it's tough.
Mrs. Gandhi was once almost at the verge of becoming the Prime Minister.
But there would have been a pushback. I mean, this is not the time to get into that. But if she had chosen to be Prime Minister, there would have been a strong pushback.
No, there was. I mean, let's be honest. Sonia Gandhi's foreign origins was a major issue in that 2004 election and the build-up. I don't think Rishi Sunak's Indian origins at any stage were a major issue. There may have been a section of conservative backbenchers and a group of people, more extreme views who would have... But the majority of people in Britain, whatever their opposition was, had nothing to do with the color of Rishi Sunak's skin. What I really think his message is, as I said earlier, that he will have these images here, he'll go back, he will celebrate Christmas. And there will be images of Rishi Sunak celebrating Christmas with the same fervor that he celebrates possibly Diwali. And I think that will be a message that goes out, that if you're a Prime Minister of a multicultural new Britain, then you sort of embrace festivals of the majority community there, as well as, Hindus and even, I'm sure he will even possibly be there at an Eid gathering in Britain. That's the new Britain. And the reality of that country at the moment. In India, on the other hand, that politics is changing. That was the old style politics where Indira Gandhi would make sure that she was seen in a temple and in a mosque and in a church. Under Narendra Modi, that has changed.
But these are personal choices.
These are personal choices as long as they don't interfere in your public functions. I think in your public functions, you've got to be clear. You've got to treat every citizen with equality. And I'm sure that message will be Rishi Sunak's message. He's worn his Hinduness on his sleeve from the day he arrived. His first statement was that he wanted to visit a temple. And there he is in Akshardham.
But the thing which will test him is his ability to get the economy back on rails.
That's
a tough one because time is against him. The second thing is, as Rajdeep very correctly said, the feeling that we rushed into Brexit without thinking of the consequences, that is increasing in Britain.
Yeah.
Because it is pinching the ordinary man. The price rise, the lack of jobs, the lack of export possibilities, because EU was its greatest market.
Absolutely. And in that sense, Boris Johnson is almost history now. Struggling both at the personal and political level. And that's how politics changes. I mean, 2 years ago, he was the flavor of the season. Then COVID happens. He struggles with it.
There is a potent message there. It takes a man of Indian origin to try and fix the mess in the British economy.
That's right. Because remember, between Johnson and Rishi Sunak, there was Liz Truss. And she was there barely for a couple of months and it was a disaster.
Yeah.
And suddenly,
whether it's the top companies in America, the likes of Google, so many American companies, Adobe, they're all being run, IBM, by people of Indian origin. Microsoft, Satya Nadella.
With the World Bank.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, India is in that sense, it's a sweet spot that we are in. The years that we've invested in, Indian students going to Britain, going to the US, many of them staying back, getting all these top quality jobs, building their professional careers. Raut, on a personal note, I went and studied in England in the 1980s. It was a very different Britain. Thatcherite Britain, you genuinely felt a sense of being excluded.
Yes.
For all that you were in a top university of England, but you felt excluded. Today you feel completely part of the landscape, which is wonderful. And I'm so happy to see Rishi Sunak in that position. It gives you a sense of pride. When you're sitting in a box surrounded by, a cricket match, surrounded by Englishmen, and they all talk about Rishi Sunak, you feel somewhere a sense of, wow. It's a bit of a wow moment for us.
As far as
on a slightly different but connected note, since you're talking of cricket match, will we have a cricket match today?
Oh, it's not raining.
No, it's not raining. You see, they've moved the venue. You see, India is also the power, the superpower of cricket. Guess what they've done? In the Asia Cup, the only match that now has a reserve day is India versus Pakistan. Some of the other countries are saying, what happened to us? Bangladesh and Sri Lanka are saying, if our match gets rained out, we don't get an extra day. But India, Pakistan gets, I think it's unfair.
It'll be a perfect,
I think it's hugely unfair.
It'll be a perfect weekend if after this big Delhi declaration, we can get one over Pakistan. And that would be very nice. So, I've just started, this is get me into trouble. I've started, not me, but a friend of mine from Pakistan is a former under-19 captain of the Pakistan cricket team. He started a WhatsApp group of Indian and Pakistani cricket fans. So since morning, it's been buzzing with who's going to win the match. And actually, for the first time, after a long time, Pakistan probably goes into a cricket match as equal favourites, if not slightly ahead. They've got a much better fast bowling attack, a more settled side, ironically, than India. India's, a lot of our players coming back from injuries. We're all hoping it'll change. So they're hoping that it'll be an India-Pakistan final in Ahmedabad. On November 19, India-Pakistan World Cup final. Think about it. You've got one match on the 15th of October. Imagine if you get another one. It'll be bonanza. Narendra Modi Stadium, Prime Minister of India watching India versus Pakistan, Amit Shah ji next to him, Jai Shah there, and you've got India versus Pakistan, Shaheen Shah Afridi and Babar Azam on one side, and Virat and Rohit Sharma and Jasprit Bumrah on the other. So there's a lot of excitement over the next couple of months. Yeah. The next big excitement after this is going to be India-Pakistan. Let's just keep the excitement a bit low. Our team's looking a bit unsettled at this moment. Hopefully they'll get it all together. And
tempering expectations.
Yeah, the G20 team Bharat looking more settled than Rohit Sharma.
No, the good news is that we are playing good hosts. We played terrific hosts to G20, and the last 3 World Cups have been won by the host country. So, 4th time lucky. We won 2011, Australia 2015, 2019 was England. It's our turn.
But it takes a special player. Kapil Dev in 83, Modi 2023. When you want to make a big impact, Dhoni in the last World Cup. When you want to make a big impact in the global stage, it takes a big player. But that's where, if for example, you heard what Amitabh Kant said when we were interviewing him yesterday. He said that at 4 a.m. I sent to all my Sherpas the message that this is the declaration, this is what my leader wants, and if you don't agree with it, get your leader to speak to mine. Amitabh Kant is a bit flamboyant and bombastic when he speaks, but there's also fact and rationale to that, because he says when he woke up at 7, just imagine he slept at 4, woke up at 7. When he woke up at 7, there was no reply. I mean, the others could just as well been sleeping in the morning, but there was no reply to him, and the Delhi declaration went through.
But
it takes a big match player, Rajdeep, to win a big World Cup. But if this is like the G20 World Cup, it's India shining.
But we've had Chandrayaan, which took us to the moon. And then we've had G20, which Hardeep Puri told you has taken us, over the moon. And now you need the World Cup in November. It'll be the perfect hat-trick. You'll have 3 events where India is shining brightly.
Bharat is shining.
Where Bharat, India is shining. We can debate that endlessly.
Right now, the person who's shining the most probably is Mr. Sunak and his wife, because every few minutes there's a new load of photographs that's dropping.
Who's putting out these photos?
And
their social media
obviously they dropped immediately after all the leaders left from the Rajghat, Rahul, because otherwise, TV studios would have been in a bit of a dilemma to split their screens. But what we're showing you now are both things, obviously, because they're important to our viewers. What happened at the Rajghat just a short while ago, and the pictures that are coming in from the Akshardham. Remember, the visit by Rishi Sunak and his wife, Akshata, happened earlier this morning. Quite early, in fact, before everything else happened, they were there. So all these lovely photographs, I think about 40, 50 photographs have already landed. You're seeing them, of course, first here on India Today. And you're right, Rajdeep, social media team as always, on the front foot.
No, and they're scoring a lot of couple goals as well, you know, just these perfect images of Akshata helping Rishi with the tie, these images of Rishi holding the umbrella when it's raining outside, right outside that stunning backdrop of the Akshardham temple. So they really have been winning hearts.
Are these pictures coming from the Akshardham?
So a bit of both.
Mandir, or are they coming from the British High Commission?
The spokesperson of the Akshardham temple sent me a lot of photos. Some of these photos are from the British High Commission and Rishi Sunak's team. So it's a mix of both. Everyone was shooting. I mean, this is the social age. Everyone's shooting. Everyone's got their phones out and everyone's sending a blast of pictures, and all of them, Rishi Sunak scoring.
That's right.
As is Akshardhamurthy.
And Joe Biden presumably is on his way out to Vietnam.
Yes.
So and there's just one final session left. So yesterday was a lot of the meat of the session in terms of the negotiations. Do they relax once it's done? Now that the declaration is out there, final session, is it more a celebratory mood, a mood of quiet satisfaction for the bureau, for the diplomats and the main principals?
Absolutely, you got it spot on. You know, people are so tense till
the
4 o'clock
declaration
in the morning or whatever, including the leadership, because they have some stakes. Biden would be worried about headlines back home. As Rahul said, that there's been some criticism that West has conceded too much, Russia didn't get named and so on. So these are the nuances that they look out for, whether they've done the right thing, whether they'll get a few more votes in Biden's case. So they are relaxed once the declaration is through. Now there's nothing but to be in casual clothes for the rest of the day. The other thing which struck me was this gathering at Rajghat. I think that's a very rare occasion. I mean, you may have, you always have the leader coming to Delhi, going to Rajghat. You may have had a couple of more, but to have nearly 30 leaders of the world and also of the financial institutions collectively together, at least for that moment, they must have had a pause in their mind that maybe let's give peace a chance. Let's give humanity a chance. Whether that stays with them.
No, but it's deeply thought through and symbolic at so many levels. The declaration has the lines right at the end of the paragraphs on geopolitics, which has the Prime Minister's imprint that this is not the era of war. And just the next morning, they're at the Rajghat. Mahatma Gandhi's life epitomizes the fight against violence, symbolizes the values of non-violence, and there is a very powerful message. You know, just imagine in the international media when this image comes out, all of them lining up. I mean, it's the kind of image which you simply can't avoid.
Has that ever happened before, Ambassador? Do you recall NAM, Non-Aligned Movement, was the last really huge gathering, more than 100 countries here. Did they all go together to Rajghat? I haven't seen a picture ever before like that. So I'm just wondering whether that ever happened. Is this the first time you would have had so many leaders on one day at Rajghat? Possibly?
NAM 1983, you're very right, had 101 heads of states.
But did they all go together to Rajghat?
No. They went singly out of choice and so on.
So this would be unique. What we've seen today, this morning, is a unique moment.
Also, there's no comparison between the national comprehensive power of the NAM countries with those represented by the G20. There is absolutely no comparison. Okay, here it is. Time for a big India Today exclusive. I want to go across now live at this moment to one of the key architects of this G20. Joining us now, live and exclusive on India Today, the chief coordinator of India's G20, a man who has a content look on his face this morning. I don't know how much sleep Shringla has had over the last several days, but Mr. Shringla, congratulations on a job well done. Were you anxious? Were you nervous in the last few hours? No ended, no consensus heading towards the Leaders Summit, no consensus yet. Give our viewers a sense of all that was happening behind the scenes. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Rahul. And I must say that we had absolutely no doubts about the ultimate conclusions that our summit would reach, for the simple reason that our planning and preparation started well in advance. And given the efforts by our team and the stature of the country and the Prime Minister's own stature, that we would have an outcome document that would reflect the solutions that are necessary to meet the global challenges of the day.
I'm very curious to know what happens to the G20. Now that you've got the African Union on board, does the G20 become the G21? Does it stay the G20? How does this work?
Well, I think that is a decision for another day. But certainly, I think we are very, very happy that Africa could have a rightful representation in one of the most important global forums, and we do believe that international governance bodies across the board need to reflect the realities of the 21st century. And Africa, as an extremely important continent with 54 countries, tremendous potential for the future, has to have its due recognition. This is also in keeping with our desire to reflect the concerns and aspirations of the Global South. As you know, the Prime Minister engaged the countries of the Global South in the Voice of Global South Summit before we took over the presidency. And our efforts within the G20 have been to ensure that the solutions that we seek through the G20 are those that address these concerns of the developing world, and the African Union is an important part of that.
Rajdeep has a question for you. Rajdeep.
What, Mr. Shringla, first of all, congratulations. You and your team have had a remarkable summit, almost flawless in execution. If I were to ask you, Mr. Shringla, for your biggest takeaway, at the end, what for you has been the biggest point of satisfaction? Is it that declaration? Is it the African Union joining in? Is it just putting it all together at the right place at the right time? What gives you a sense of greatest satisfaction today?
I would say all of the above, for the simple reason that our presidency has to be looked at as a comprehensive whole, a comprehensive effort. It is not only a whole of government effort, but whole of nation effort. And the consequences and I would say results of our presidency really has to be looked at comprehensively and in a manner that encompasses all of these efforts. So whether it is the seamless organization of G20 process culminating in the summit, whether it is the induction of the African Union as a permanent member of the G20, whether it is the achievement of having an outcome declaration in the first day of the summit itself in such a polarized, group like the G20, polarized from a geopolitical perspective, I think has been nothing short of extraordinary.
So what was that turning point? As you said, it was a polarized world. What was the turning point? What clinched it? Rahul was interviewing Amitabh Kant yesterday, and he said 4 a.m. in the morning, he sent a message to all the Sherpas saying that, if you have any problems with the declaration, please ask your leaders to speak to the Prime Minister. Was there any prime ministerial intervention that made the difference? What was it that changed it to make sure that you had a comprehensive agreement?
Well, just to give a very brief background, obviously, in today's world, the polarizations that exist also cut across the G20. But India as a country has been very well placed because we are regular invitees to the G7, we're members of the Quad. At the same time, we're members of BRICS, we're members of the SCO. We straddle that ideological space between North and South and East and West. And the country's stature and the stature of our Prime Minister, I think, has been absolutely critical in determining the outcome of our summit. And if we today have a declaration, I think it can be attributed to not only teamwork. I mean, teamwork has been there, but I think it is definitely the stature of India and Prime Minister Modi himself that has made that vital difference to the way that we are regarded.
Some of your former colleagues with us in the studio.
Our ability to provide solutions to global challenges.
And they've been talking about what a big day this is for the Ministry of External Affairs cadre, the IFS cadre, the fact that a team of young officers have brought together this declaration, tiptoeing around various geopolitical fissures and bringing a consensus which to many seemed quite unlikely.
Well, I mean, we have an excellent team, but again, as someone who looks at it, I mean, I would say that it is Team India that is today one Team India that has, I think, the satisfaction of seeing our country, succeed in providing outcomes on behalf of the G20 under our presidency. And I think if we had a seamless G20 presidency culminating in the crowning glory of the summit with an outcome document that is very, very substantive in nature, I think that whole of government and whole of nation approach has won.
How was the approach of the Chinese during the negotiations, given the fact that each of the ministerials that happened since December didn't see a joint statement at the end of it? Was that making you anxious? Xi Jinping sitting it out, not coming to Delhi, being represented by the Premier. Do you want to give our viewers a sense of the attitude of the Chinese delegation in these negotiations, sir?
Well, you heard External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar at the press conference yesterday when he said that, if we have a document, an outcome document in the G20 under our presidency, it reflects consensus within the group. In other words, every country, every partner country in the G20 has put its shoulder behind the efforts. Every country has come together to realize the importance of the G20 in providing, as I said, solutions to the vast global problems of the day, which are mainly socio-economic and financial in nature. And from that point of view, I think, when you have a substantive, highly substantive and outcome-oriented document of the type that we saw yesterday, I think it has to be attributed to the entire G20 membership under our leadership of the G20.
But the one question that people will ask is that, yes, we've got a substantive document in place, but the issues that, as you rightly said, polarize the world still remain there, particularly Ukraine. Given what was said in Bali, given what some are saying was a more watered-down version on Ukraine in this document, do you sense that those polarities are slowly being removed, Mr. Shringla? Or do you believe that still remains the major challenge for groupings like G20 to walk the talk on those issues, be it Ukraine or be it even climate change?
Well, you heard what the Prime Minister said, that our presidency has to be seen as a presidency of healing, harmony and hope. And if you looked at the 8 paragraphs that dealt with geopolitical issues under our outcome document, it is under the rubric of planet, people, peace and prosperity. And if you read those paragraphs carefully, you will see a very distinctly Indian imprint of the concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam in all of those 8 paragraphs, whether we talk about the UN Charter, we talk about respect for international law, or the respect for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of states, or we talk about the fact that all these issues have to be resolved through diplomacy and dialogue, and finally that this is not an era of war. It reflects our positions that we have taken right from the beginning of this conflict, and I think this is also a turning point. This is a point in which the international community has come together to look at a document that we've always been calling for, one that reflects unity of the globe, not harmony, not disharmony, unity, not diversity in that sense of the term, and cooperation, not conflict. And I think this is very important that today all of our G20 members across the ideological divide have come together on a formulation that seems to offer healing, harmony and hope for the future.
I have a curveball for you. You've had a few action-packed months. I'm sure you're looking to, just relax once this is over for a bit to the extent that you can. But I'm reading a lot of these reports from Darjeeling, which seem to suggest that Harsh Shringla is being looked at by the BJP as the possible Lok Sabha candidate from Darjeeling. They're talking about your credentials, comes from Darjeeling and the Sikkim region, grew up speaking Nepali at home, father is a Sikkimese Buddhist, mother is a Hindu Nepali, family is well respected in Darjeeling and Sikkim. So your political Janpatri is being spoken of as a true Gorkha, son of the Gorkha tribe, and therefore looked at as a technocrat. You already have the likes of Jaishankar, Hardeep Puri, R.K. Singh, Ashwini Vaishnav and many others. What's your smile telling me, Mr. Shringla?
Well, look, I mean, I've spent 4 decades in, the service of the nation as a civil servant. And essentially, when you have committed so much of your life to serving, people, I think that will continue in one form or the other. And what form that takes, I cannot say.
So,
Whatever tasks that have been given, you don't question the tasks, you perform the tasks to the best of your ability, but you work constructively towards, what really helps people, and that's been my endeavor right through, and I will continue to work in that.
Spoken like
so
a
you're
true
not
politician.
No, so you're not. No, Mr. Shringla, very important. You've done what you have, and as you said, you've served India with distinction. So you're not ruling it out. Well, people will be listening to you very
He's
carefully.
given you the
Darjeeling.
perfect political response. He's not ruled it in, he's not ruled it out.
He's not ruling it out. So Darjeeling, sir, all your people of Darjeeling
You have stated what is. Yeah. Sorry, please.
I'm saying people in Darjeeling listening to you will say, maybe Harsh Shringla is saying yes.
Well, what is correct is that I am a son of the soil. I have always been attached to my roots, and I've always worked for people in my part of the country, because I feel that, there are very few people who make it up, and you owe it to people to work for them. But that's all I can say. The rest is pure speculation, and I would certainly, as I said, continue to work in a constructive manner.
Sir, we have with us one of your senior colleagues, Mr. Dogra here, former ambassador. Mr. Dogra, you have a question
and you were getting very emotional about the IFS and the MEA, and how they brought this together. What do you have to say to Harsh Shringla?
Well, Harsh is one example of excellence in IFS. And Harsh and his younger colleagues have performed brilliantly. So all I can say is congratulations. And Harsh, don't be shy about joining politics. If people are speculating, there must be a good reason for that. So shine there as you've been shining in IFS.
That's someone encouraging you, Mr. Shringla, to make that great leap.
Thank you, sir.
Well,
That's
a positive or a negative about politics?
I very much...
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Shringla.
No, well, as far as I'm concerned, you continue to work. As you worked in service, you continue to work for the larger, common interests in the globe and the larger good. And I think that would be the endeavor. In what form that is, it's difficult to say now. But I certainly, would want to thank Ambassador Rajiv Dogra for his support throughout. I mean, even when I was Foreign Secretary, he was supportive, and he's always been a great senior colleague and a mentor. Thank you, sir, for your advice and guidance.
Well, all the best to you, both in your present, because the present job continues for some time, and also whatever future plans you have, I'm sure you'll shine.
It's interesting. India has a rich tradition of IFS officers who made careers in politics, stretching back to Natwar Singh, became a successful politician. You've had Jaishankar making the leap. Correct me if there are, I'm sure there are many more names.
President Narayanan.
President Narayanan,
Hamid
yes.
Ansari.
Hamid Ansari.
Manishankar Iyer.
Manishankar, how can we forget Manishankar Iyer?
Roster is full.
So, Mr. Harsh Shringla, you're going to follow in. You've got lots of people to emulate.
Let's not get him into trouble. Okay, we just asked. I said I threw a curveball at him. He's just.
I don't think you can throw a
there are good reasons and not so good reasons.
Good one.
I see, Mr. Shringla, now you're speaking like a politician. The moment Manishankar Iyer's name came up, you said for good reasons and not so good reasons. He's already putting on his political pads.
No, but the fact is they've all, in their own way, done quite well. I think politics requires diplomacy. So diplomacy can be.
What was the toughest part of all you did over the last year, Mr. Shringla? What was the toughest?
I think one of the meetings that gave me the greatest satisfaction was the one in Srinagar in Jammu and Kashmir, because I really had to go there a number of times and work closely with the J&K administration, Lieutenant Governor, Chief Secretary, all of our colleagues there. And I think it is an extraordinary, again, effort of teamwork that resulted in a meeting that I believe was a game changer. Srinagar was an absolute game changer. The way that meeting was held, the international representation, the sort of turnout for that meeting, the sort of urban transformations and beautification of the city that took place, which really charmed the residents of that place into saying that we should have more meetings of the G20. The fact that it spurred tourism in a very important part of our country, a beautiful part of our country. I think in many senses that was a game changer, in the region and of course in terms of the way the G20 was perceived in our country. And
what about
I
the
think if we
meetings in
can
Arunachal
contribute in that
Pradesh?
small way,
The fact
not
that
just for our G20 effort, but also for the future, I think that is very, very important.
China wasn't very happy with the meetings in Arunachal Pradesh, and
that
yet you
applies
did one
to
everywhere.
every part of the country that we've had.
How much?
Absolutely. We had at least one G20 meeting in every state and union territory of the country.
How much credit in the end, Mr. Shringla, do you also give Prime Minister Modi? The manner in which he put a sort of personal imprint on G20, the personalization in a way of his diplomatic outreach. How critical was that?
Let's be very clear, right from the beginning of the process, not now, but in 2020 when I was Foreign Secretary, Prime Minister had a vision for our G20 presidency, and that vision has gone down right to the script. So we've been guided by his vision. And as I said, I mean, we've got ministerial oversight. We've had oversight by the coordination committee led by the principal secretary to the Prime Minister. We've had an excellent team working with us. It's been a whole of government, but a whole of nation approach that has made such a momentous event a success. And I think in many senses, if it hadn't been all of these factors, right from the guidance of the Prime Minister and his own vision for G20, it would not have been a meeting, it would not have been a process of this magnitude and achievement that we have seen today. Today that we can look back and say that these 9 or 10 months were the most momentous in our diplomatic history and engagement at a global level.
Do you think Brazil will have a tough time to follow? Was one of the ideas also to take the bar so high that whoever hosts the G20 next will really look at what India did and say, okay, now how do we try and outdo this, or compete or compare or at least equal this?
Brazil has been part of the Troika with us. We share similar ideology, and I think they will continue many of the best practices that we have instituted. They've been a great partner, a very friendly country, and I have no doubt that they would host a wonderful presidency of the G20.
We leave it there.
In conclusion, just to ask you, so you can now probably organize another festival of a very different kind in Darjeeling, another beautiful part of the world, but this time for very different reasons than diplomacy.
By the way, we did a festival in Darjeeling.
You did?
We held a G20 tourism meeting in Darjeeling, and you never had such an international event in that neck of the woods, but I think people were delighted that we could get the top tourism representatives to that Queen of the Hill Stations, and I think it went off very, very well with full support from all quarters.
I think we've picked up a theme there. You're not making it public and it's not known, but I think we've touched on an interesting strand which we'll build on as the time goes by. Harsh Shringla, thank you very much for joining us. Delight having you with us, and congratulations once again on a job well done. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rahul and Rajiv. And
it's actually, that's the buzz. There are a number of bureaucrats and diplomats could be getting election tickets in Lok Sabha 2024.
I just picked up this one report from Darjeeling, and I just
there are lots.
I just happened to toss it, and he's latched onto it. And
he's not denied it, and we are told that there could be. Mr. Dogra, are you in line?
No.
You don't want to do it? Sure. Too late.
No, I'm so busy writing my books.
Okay, good.
No,
it
gives me the greatest pleasure.
Okay. From Manishankar Iyer to Harsh Shringla.
He said they've done good things and bad things both, huh?
So
he's speaking like a bit of a politician already.
Okay, great. We presumably, what's next, Shiv? What's on the menu?
Well, there's a tree planting ceremony that's going to happen shortly. I think it's running a little bit late, but it's going to happen at the event.
No, plus I just want to tell our viewers that one of the sadhus who was at the Akshardham temple when Rishi Sunak and Akshata came will be joining us. So we're going to slip into a quick break right now. It'll be very interesting to chat with somebody who was there, who took them around the temple and was part of the puja that happened at the Akshardham temple when the Prime Minister of Britain and his wife Akshardham were there. So we'll come back to that. We'll slip into a break. More for you on the other side. Stay with us. We're back in a moment.
स्वैग से करेंगे सबका स्वागत.
The 3 F's, food, fuel and fertilizers, were issues of special